Welcome, everyone, to the daily workbook lesson. And today we're going to be looking at lesson 73, I Will There Be Light. But first, I would like to ask you all to get comfortable in your chair and take a few deep breaths. And close your eyes if you're comfortable with that. And settle into that presence that adores us, is as close as our heartbeat and as near as our breath, and surrounds us in the loving light of its presence always. It is with us wherever we go, always available, always gentle, always loving. Let that love surround you now and rest for a moment in its peace. Thank you all for taking that moment of quiet with me. So, I'd like to ask for 2 volunteers to read the entirety of the lesson, starting with reading 2 paragraphs each. Do I have a volunteer? Just put your little hand up. Oh, great, Jack. Ah, and Bill, great. Okay, Bill, would you like to start out?
All right, then. I have to scroll my screen to 73,
Okay,
next section, because I have the middle one on only like the middle half of my screen. I've got notes on the right and the web version on the right.
that's fine.
Okay, so here we are in 72 and 13. It's 13 sections. Lesson 72. Holding grievance.
Bill, it's lesson 73.
I thought I said next to the next. Lesson 73. I will there be light. Today we are considering the will you share with God. This is not the same as the ego's idle wishes, out of which darkness and nothingness arise. The will you share with God has all the power of creation in it. The ego's idle wishes are unshared and therefore have no power at all. Its wishes are not idle in the same sense that they can make a world of illusions in which you believe can be very strong. But they are idle indeed in terms of creation. They make nothing that is real. 2. Idle wishes and grievances are patterns or co-makers in picturing the world you see. The wishes of the ego gave rise to it, and the ego's need for grievances, which are necessary to maintain it, peoples it with figures that seem to attack you and call for righteous judgment. These figures become the middlemen the ego employs to traffic in grievances. They stand between your awareness and your brother's reality. Beholding them, you do not know your brothers or yourself.
Your will is lost to you in this strange bartering, in which guilt is traded back and forth, and grievances increase with each exchange. Can such a world have been created by the will the Son of God shares with his Father? Did God create disaster for his Son? Creation is the will of both together. Would God create a world that kills himself? Today we will try once more to reach the world that is in accordance with your will. The light is in it because it does not oppose the will of God. It is not heaven, but the light of heaven shines on it. Darkness has vanished. The ego's idle wishes have been withdrawn. Yet the light that shines upon this world reflects your will, and so it must be in you that we will look for it.
Was that two?
Bi-
Right.
Yeah, so Bill, you want to read 5 and 6?
5. Your picture of the world can only mirror what is within. The source of neither light nor darkness can be found without. Grievances darken your mind, and you look out on a darkened world. Forgiveness lifts the darkness, reasserts your will, and lets you look upon a world of light. We have repeatedly emphasized that the barrier of grievances is easily passed and cannot stand between you and your salvation. The reason is very simple. Do you really want to be in hell? Do you really want to weep and suffer and die? 6. Forget the ego's arguments which seek to prove all this is really heaven. You know it is not so. You cannot want this for yourself. There is a point beyond which illusions cannot go. Suffering is not happiness, and it is happiness you really want. Such is your will in truth, and no salvation is your will as well. You want to succeed in what we are trying to do today. We undertake it with you, with your blessing and your glad accord.
7. We will succeed today if you remember that you want salvation for yourself. You want to accept God's plan because you share in it. You have no will that can really oppose it, and you do not want to do so. Salvation is for you. Above all else, you want the freedom to remember who you really are. Today, it is the ego that stands powerless before your will. Your will is free, and nothing can prevail against it. 8. Therefore, we undertake the exercises for today in happy confidence, certain that we will find what it is your will to find, and remember what it is your will to remember. No idle wishes can detain us, nor deceive us with an illusion of strength. Today, let your will be done, and end forever the insane belief that it is hell in place of heaven that you choose.
9. We will begin our longer practice periods with the recognition that God's plan for salvation, and only His, is wholly in accord with your will. It is not the purpose of an alien power thrust upon you unwillingly. It is the one purpose here on which you and your Father are in perfect accord. You will succeed today. The time appointed for the release of the Son of God from hell and from all idle wishes. His will is now restored to his awareness. He is willing to do this very day, to look upon the light in him and be saved. And after reminding yourself of this and determining to keep your will clearly in mind, tell yourself with gentle firmness and quiet certainty, I will there be light. Let me behold the light that reflects God's will and mine. Then let your will assert itself. Joined with the power of God, limited with yourself,
No.
and united with yourself. Limited. Put the rest of the practice period under their guidance. Join with them, and they lead the way.
11. In the shorter practice periods, again make a declaration of what you really want. Say, I will there be light. Darkness is not my will. This should be repeated several times an hour. It is most important, however, to apply today's idea in this form immediately you are tempted to hold a grievance of any kind. This will help you let your grievances go instead of cherishing them and hiding them in darkness.
Thank you both for reading. And Bill, you have your hand up. Did you want to make a comment?
No, but I will, sure. Real quickly, I had 3 comments on that. Number one, I love how they make grievances like trafficking drugs. You know, I'm sure that's exactly what they mean. I can't be any other way. To me, it means this. These figures become the middlemen the ego employs to traffic in grievances. I like that. Kind of cool. Trafficking in grievances is just as bad as doing drugs. Well, we're not better than the person whacking the drugs into their arm, you know, at all. That's kind of cool. I like that. And the second one is you have no will that can really oppose it, and you do not want to do so. That's really cool. They're making us understand that our ego will is nothing. And I think if you went all the way from every day, did a lesson like this, by the time you got to this lesson, it would be time. I think it can still work just all of a sudden doing this as your first lesson too, possibly. Like it says, there's no way to go through the course or the manual, workbook. Any order it comes in for each individual is an individual journey with me, he would say. I say. Love this lesson. They're just getting better and better. I can't believe it. It's from 69.
Yeah. Yes, it's wonderful. Thank you, Bill. Megan.
I was looking at paragraph 3. So he was talking about, I was thinking of the mafia, but it says your will is lost to you in a strange bartering, in which guilt is traded back and forth, and grievances increase with each exchange. That just sounds awful. That just sounds so.
You could replace that word with cocaine or heroin, man. Yeah.
Or just grievances. If you just realize your grievances that are just so gooey.
Doesn't have to be a big bad grievance. They're all the same. Cocaine is just the same as a minor irritation.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard for us. I think it's hard for us in a physical body to really get that there are no differences. There's only one problem and there's only one solution, and sort of everything can be fit into the, you know, that category. But thank you. Does anyone else have anything they want specifically in that whole in the whole lesson to comment on? If not, I want to read the first chapter or the first paragraph again, and let's talk about it.
Hand up, Peter Alessandria.
Pardon? Oh, Peter, yes.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, you know, paragraph 6. Forget the ego's arguments which seek to prove all this is really heaven. You know it is not so. You cannot want this for yourself. There is a point beyond which illusions cannot go. Suffering is not happiness, and it is happiness you really want. My point is, you know, we kind of have, I speak for myself, I kind of have had this notion that, you know, life is just, you know, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. there's suffering at times, other times there's not suffering, and this is just the way it is. And this is, and people say this is as good as it gets, and look, the problem is nobody gets out of here alive, so how good could it possibly be? And we've just kind of we have this status quo of just trying to get through life on a daily basis. And I get it. For many people, life is a struggle, life is a challenge. I just love what he's suggesting here, is that we don't have a clue as to what a good life is. We don't have a clue as to what's really available. Thanks.
Yeah. I agree. Thank you, Peter. Anybody else have anything they want to say? Okay. Today we are considering the will you share with God. This is not the same as the ego's idle wishes, out of which darkness and nothingness arise. The will you share with God has all the power of creation in it. The ego's idle wishes are unshared and therefore have no power at all. Its wishes are not idle in the sense that they can make a world of illusions in which your belief can be very strong, but they are idle indeed in terms of creation. They make nothing that is real. Does anybody have any thoughts on that paragraph? It's really tricky sometimes for me to choose, because I think my ego is getting hip to the fact that it has to come at me in a little bit different way in order to get through. And so it's always a game of, oh, how does it make me feel? I got it. If it makes me feel really sweet, it's this Holy Spirit. Maggie, you're muted. There you go.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. I was just thinking about, as I was listening to everyone reading the whole lesson in its entirety, and then just the paragraphs that a few of you felt inclined to highlight immediately, the comments that folks felt inclined to make immediately. I was just noticing for myself, I'm thinking about, what are the idle wishes? Like, what does that mean, idle wishes? And for me, right now, what I was just thinking about, and I don't mean to even suggest that this is what it's saying definitively, but for me, I was thinking about how there's the obvious grievances, the really obvious, I'm mad at this person, I feel victimized, and those things that a lot of us, myself included, tend to focus the practice on initially because they seem big and in your face, very notable. But we're talking about how there's no hierarchy to them, right? And the idle ones, I don't know, for me, I'm thinking about how there's so much mind wandering, just a daily basis, just moment to moment, and just really not having purpose, even just kind of thinking that I'm not choosing anything, thinking that it's just idle, that I'm just showing up in a space, even if I just show up in this meeting right now because I'm scheduled to be here right now. And I just come in without necessarily a purpose, without necessarily having really chosen who I was coming in with. It's like there seems to be all of this idle, like neutral kinds of thoughts, right? That, oh, those don't really matter. They're not that big of a deal. But those are the ones, I think I kind of hear you saying this too, Sharon, that I feel more inclined to be noticing and letting myself recognize that, like it says here, they are really idle in the sense that they're not making anything real, but they're not idle in the sense that they are creating a good deal of distress for myself and kind of not looking at them or letting them just pass by, thinking of it as not too important, not as big as other grievances, et cetera, et cetera. It's really something that I wish to stop doing personally. So that's just what I wanted to share right now.
Thank you. Thank you. I can relate. Andrew.
Yeah, I just like the way that paragraph summarizes how the ego mind makes the world we see. The Course says it over and over again, but that says it in 2 sentences. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's like it all keeps boiling down to just two things. Megan.
So I was reminded of when I was very young and struggling with my weight, I would wish that something would happen and my weight would just, something would make it go away or it would just resolve. I don't think those are idle wishes. I think those were magical wishes of like God would intervene and something would happen. And then, as I got older, I realized that there was a lot more in my control than I knew there was in my control. And then as I started reading the course, I realized that there was even more that was in my control. And that was the choice between where I wanted to exist in a world where there was love or fear. Because, I could, the basic worries of my weight and the magical thinking of it could go away. And then I could actually do something about that in the physical world. It's totally different from okay, now I have a choice of how I want to view the world. Do I want to view the body as something that it's so important that I get caught up in it? And also, is that a fearful place to live versus do I want to choose between being with God and sharing the will of God or my own will and seeing through, I guess recently I've been trying to look at things through Jesus's eyes or God's eyes, seeing only love and compassion and saying, I reach out towards people who are in conflict because I see them as needing love, not as attacking. I see them just in dire need. And so I think there's just been this huge evolution for me. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad for you too. That's wonderful, Megan. Bill.
Awesome, Megan. Thanks. I was going off Maggie's idle thoughts, and I had to really also, I'm sure glad you brought it up and in the way you did, is yeah, the idle thoughts, what are they? Let's recognize them, and then we can know what they are, and at least we can know that those thoughts have nothing to do with the will of God and us. Okay, all those idle thoughts, I'm gonna say, comes to me as everything other than thoughts or ponderings on how the sun will be or is reunited. Everything other than that, unless you're thinking about how the entire 8 billion of us are going to unite and the world isn't going to be here anymore, to me, that's the end will. So I would think that anything that has nothing to do, bless Elysian come, I would think that anything that has to do with the reunite or the unite or the fact that we are one, the sun is one, and we are the sun, and I am that. I am. And so any other thoughts other than about that exact subject, I would say are idle thoughts and are useless. I don't know. Maybe we can be here and then we'll have thoughts about wow, how it is. Yeah, it is one. It's amazing. We will have that thoughts. It's just amazing. And it's amazing to me how the people can change like from one day to the next. It's like, it's just all about kind of like, it feels like what I'm feeling. Now, this is getting me to go out there and bless them like I'm the son of God and they are too. And it'll be very interesting. I look forward to it. I like how it guarantees us this is done. Okay, so we're moving to that point, and like on times like this, I'm thinking the world is just gonna go to nothing now. But I want to see my son grow up. He's 13. I've had a heck of a great time raising him as the mother and the father since he was 2. I brought him back from the Caribbean. I like to see him grow up. I like to see where he's going. I like to and I also see that he is kind of going through the same thing as me, believing that the world is real. I can't be telling him, and I'm thinking, should I be telling him, son, the world isn't real? Or I don't think I should be. I think I should wait till he comes to me about it. And I don't know. I really don't know, but
Well, really, for me, all I can ever do with my children is love them and see them as perfect.
But
And
we're
no,
filling their brains with words, and we're telling them certain things, that they should have a morality about certain things, and at least a belief in
well,
God.
that's a whole different topic.
No, that's on the
and I-
same topic, and then you add in, but don't forget, son, the truth is none of this is real. Like I almost feel like I'm not doing that to him, but I'm getting to the point where like I kind of want to, because he's really like getting into his own mind and opposing mine like I opposed my father. Okay, but at least that we are able to let the love continue to flow. But I can see that he's starting to turn as a 13-year-old to his own self, and that own self is going to be in contrast with the other human body, which is me. Like,
all you
so
can do is love him. No, really, all you can do is love him and know he's on his path. and
right,
love him.
let him go, and yeah, exactly. But so I would like to see that all transpire and go through exactly like that. Not all of a sudden go to the end game where right now the will of God is the unification of his son, 8 billion, and him and the HS.
We cannot possibly understand or even imagine how it's all going to happen, that we're all going to reach there at the same time.
We
That's
all have to.
so beyond me. Oh, and look, there's a whole bunch of hands up now, and we need to
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
need
for
to let
sure.
them.
But we do. We all come at the same time. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, Megan.
Johanna, did you put your hand up a little bit? I didn't know if you wanted to respond immediately. You go ahead if you would like.
To the parenting topic, yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because I'm a mom too, or a parent too, Bill. And I think what Sharon said is true. Love, love, love. And the other thing is ask for inner guidance,
Yeah.
especially with kids. So you shut up and you only open your mouth when you're told to. It's that stark.
Mhm.
Does that resonate at all, Bill?
Yeah, I'll take it. Thanks, Johanna.
Yeah.
Mama.
Let me just say, I have a son that went down that road too, and the best thing I ever did for him and for myself was to forgive him early on and to see him as perfect. And I see all my children as perfect, and you know, you just love them through all the things that they go through, and the punishments that they have to incur because of the things they do. You love them right through all of it. That's
Oh, absolutely, you ladies, love sisters. We are like that. We will be like that. And I'm looking forward to the whole thing, like even like the separation that will happen and how it's gonna go. I know it's perfectly divinely designed, and all I'm saying, my point is not about any of that. My point is that I'm having a hard time going to where this lesson's asking me to go to, because where I think that is no world. That's
well,
all I'm saying.
yeah.
Because I do want to see how this, even though it's an illusion, hallucination, and pain is only in it, blah, blah, blah.
The course will not take us to no world. The course will take us to the real world.
Right.
And the course cannot take us beyond. And the timing of that God, that's what the course says, the timing that God takes the last step and lifts up into heaven is not up to us.
Right.
Right.
And so to talk in terms of there is no world and there are no people isn't really helpful.
No.
Because the course is written within the framework of the ego.
Right.
And that's where our work is. And what happens beyond that, it can only get better and more. But we're not concerned with what happens beyond that moment. And that's a blessing. Because we get all caught up in ideas of nihilism and I don't know what dark imaginations. And that's not our task. Our task is to forgive. And to undo the blocks to the awareness of love's presence in our experience.
Yeah.
That's all we're asked to do, nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, looking forward to the time when that the mad mind ego stops talking in my mind that I'm always having to shut down, tell it to calm down. It's a continuous thing. I wonder if it's going to be.
Absolutely. I'm with you, Bill. Same here.
Yeah.
That's our work. That's our work.
Okay.
Thank you both so much for that exchange. I appreciate that. Maggie.
Yeah, thank you, Bill, for what you're posing, and Johanna for the response. And I had raised my hand because when Bill started talking, he mentioned, yeah, let's like, what are those idle thoughts? Let's like say what they are. And so I was thinking about how I could be a little bit more specific just from my experience about what I was kind of referring to. And then I think I can connect that also to something else that you were saying, Bill. But for me, I was referring to just, Bill, you said any thoughts that are outside of thinking about heaven and oneness. And I mean, that this is true. I was thinking for myself, just noticing the things that I think of as more idle, I guess, are just the kind of like running programming, the constant just like chatter and routine that is going on for me on a daily basis. And it can be as simple as just getting up in the morning and not beginning my day as I try to follow rules for decision and take that very seriously. And if I fail to do that first thing in the morning, if I fail to remember that I am in every moment making a choice, and I get to choose who I'm doing that with, it's a bit of an idle program that I'm just kind of running where I'm like, oh, yep, I'm Maggie and she just has to do these things. She's just here. She's still in this world. It's happening to her. She goes here now. She works and she does this now. Okay, I guess I just have to do that. Nothing's really happening. It's like a failure to take responsibility for what I see, a failure to remember that there are no idle thoughts, there are no neutral thoughts, that in every moment I have a choice just about having some purpose and remembering what everything is for, remembering that everything that is in front of me is really grist for the mill. It's something to be used for the forgiveness practice. And so those were kind of the idle types of thoughts that I was referring to when I made my comment. They were things that I didn't focus my practice on when I first began. They didn't strike me as the types of things that were being spoken to. But at this point, I really see a lot of that in paragraphs that I didn't really recognize it before. But Bill, I do want to still say to you too, just listening to you, it's like I can always really relate so strongly to what you're saying. And I just hear you, I really feel you. And I just want to say that first and foremost, that experience of continuously being tempted to take it to that end and be like, well, what does this mean? It's going to go away. It's going to disappear. It's nothing. Like it's really, I really understand and I really relate. And I do agree with what has been said to you, is that it's not very helpful to us to do that, though. So I do find it as part of my practice.
That.
It seems sometimes, yes, I've definitely had that sense. I will tell you that I still do get into that thinking in my own experience, and then have frustration with it and confusion with it, and then bring myself back. And then there's moments where it feels so clear to me. I'm like, why do I ever do that? And then I'm right back in it again. So if it's just helpful to hear that others have this experience too.
Yeah.
But you mentioned, feeling unable to do what this particular lesson is asking of you because it feels like it's asking that. And I thought I could just say something maybe to that, I felt something to say to that in response. For me, like you were talking about your son and wishing to be able to watch him grow up and just, I was just hearing you and I was just thinking about how I can relate to that. I mean, I have things still too, kind of this idle kind of thinking of like, well, what happens to Maggie still? What's going to happen? Is something coming eventually? And it's again, the sense of there's something outside of me and I'm just waiting to see what happens with it. And it is the kind of thing that I practice with now. But I do not think this means that you have to stop yourself from wishing to watch your son grow up. It's really something that you can be successful as you just notice that wish. You just notice that that's your desire. And it literally says in paragraph 7, we will succeed today if you remember that you want salvation for yourself. That's it. Like that's how you can be successful doing this lesson. So you do not have to skip to the end somehow. It really doesn't work that way. I've tried. I can't do it. I don't think it works that way.
Still
And
here.
yeah, still seem to be, right?
Her body still.
And and you don't have to be like, oh no, I shouldn't want to see my son, or oh no, I shouldn't, think of my son, or oh no, there I go again, do it. It's just about noticing it and just going, oh, okay, yeah, I'm choosing that still. Part of me does still wish for that. Part of me still likes that. Part of me still wants that. For me, and the kind of idle thoughts I was talking about, it's a practice of noticing. I don't want to take responsibility for what I see. I want to just act like Maggie's just in this world and she's reacting to things and waiting for something to happen. And so I don't then judge and shame myself for that. And think, you need to stop that. Don't do that. Don't do that. My practice is just noticing that I'm doing it and then trying to do what it says in that first sentence from paragraph 7, which is just ask myself very honestly, would I prefer this over salvation? Is being described to me? And if I am noticing little moments where I am choosing to not follow rules for decision, I am essentially saying I would choose this over salvation, and just noticing that. Ken Wapnick is my teacher, and he would always say that a good course student is just a course student who sees how much they do not want this and then forgives themselves for it. That's it, Bill. So you're doing it as long as you're doing that.
Yeah. Oh, great. And
Thank you, Maggie. That was great. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. Yeah, I would just like to address Bill's concern for his son's spiritual education. My wife and I had a son and daughter. They're adults
when
now.
it's in one place, it's fine. When it
Jacqueline moved.
Oh, and they were young and long before I knew about A Course in Miracles. And we raised them as Catholics because mostly for both of our parents. Our parents were Catholic. We were raised Catholic. Before my wife and I had children, we didn't go to church, but once we had the children, we did that and, sent them to school and Catholic school and all that. But once they moved out of the house, we stopped going to church again. I did my own spiritual journey, and I ended up finally finding the Course in Miracles. And my wife and children know what my spiritual practice is. And if I were to do it all over again, knowing what I know now, I would just tell my son or daughter that everyone has to find God on their own terms. And this is what I believe, and this is my practice, and you're welcome to ask and talk to me about it, and I'll give you the book. But you're free to do whatever you want. But I would try to stress that belief in God is important.
Yeah,
that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And you know what came up for me, and I believe this is something that you can say to anyone of any age or any spiritual belief, that there's two voices in our head, and I think everybody can relate to that. There's the voice that's, yeah, you should be doing this, or look how chubby you're getting, and oh, la, la, la. Whatever that voice is that is anything other than love is the ego, and it always speaks loudest and it always speaks first. And so all I ever want to tell my children is just listen to what the voice in your head is saying, and choose to listen to the one that's quiet, and ask it what you should be doing about anything, and know that you're perfect already. It doesn't matter.
Sure. And I wonder if there's anyone here in this panel that does not have that chatter voice any longer.
We all do.
Or who would have been blessed with not having that chatter voice. I see nobody nodding yes. I do not see Elysian. Elysian would be thinking about it. But I will bet that Elysian, because I've spoken to him many hours offside working on other things that we got to do some logo work and stuff. But it seems to me that he doesn't have that same voice. Elysian, please speak to that. Am I right? I don't think you have that chatter voice that is nagging every one of us else. It's not, you got to bless.
Well, I would say it
Gimme.
comes and goes, especially when I interact with someone who's a little bit more ignorant, especially my neighbors, and it seems as if I partake some of their programming, which the Holy Spirit is like, it's not the voice of Holy Spirit, and for me it's very hard then sometimes, since I sort of want to fit in with them, but they're living totally different lives, and then it takes me some time to return to my alignment with how God sees me, and yeah, so I just can't wait to change my location so that I don't have to short sell myself for someone else's programming that comes from just, well, I don't know, I feel it leads nowhere, you know, and even if I would say it from Holy Spirit's voice, they would probably be against it since they identify with the ego's voice too much. So yeah, so the chattering comes when I have to interact with this type of people, and then yeah,
Right.
after a
Okay, and
while.
that's what I'm saying, panel, is that Elysian, if he's by himself, he doesn't have this chatter. This man is gifted, not like our brains. It seems like everyone else has a brain. Like,
Okay, now,
You over exaggerate, since it's only these qualities resides
people, you
within
don't have
Holy Spirit itself, and it cannot be threatened. So it's matter of faith and belief for you to relax into that Holy Spirit, where there is no chatter, no like attack that can come to you. So so yeah.
yeah. Thank you, Alicia. That's great. Well, Megan has had her hand up and had been very patient. So go ahead, Megan.
Okay, so Bill, one of the things that I consider idle thoughts is thinking about how the world's going to end and we'll go to heaven. That for me is a circular idle thought that will make me crazy. So I have shunned those thoughts because I don't know. The great and powerful shrug emoji, I have no idea. And so if somebody comes up to me and says, "What do you think?" I'll say, "I don't know." But I practice with A Course in Miracles because I wish to be doing the will of God. So as far as a son or somebody that you love, I mean, you wouldn't tell your child that lightning can strike you and dead, because that's not helpful. But so in the same vein, you wouldn't tell your son there is no world, it's not real, because that would be unhelpful. But you can say the things that you have learned from the Course, which is, I have learned that I am safe and secure and that I am loved, and that no matter what happens, son, I know that you are safe and secure and that you are loved and that you will find your way to God, whichever path you choose, because that's the trust and the faith. And then you're giving love to your child, that they will find their way no matter what path they choose. They will eventually find their way home. And that's what the Course keeps telling you, is to stop all the intellectual debate of how will it happen? When will it happen? What will we see? What will we do? It's the trust in that I am loved and I know where I'm going, but I have no idea the path I will take or how it will take me there.
Megan, thank you. I am definitely going to use that, and I'm going to tell him that. I haven't told him anything, actually. I just assume that he knows everything from the beginning. I've seen it. He's basically raised me. It's amazing that the son was given to me, and that to be a single father to raise from when he was 1 year and 9 months old. There was a holy, and now, but though I see that he's getting to the 13-year-old, and that like he doesn't know anything or care about anything. So, oh man, I gotta use that at least and tell him that I know that God is gonna take him where he needs to be and how he needs to go, and he will come to God. And I go, thank you, Megan. I'm gonna thank you.
Yeah.
I can say that that time when you're 11, 12, 13, those are precious years to hold on to. So when people intervene with them and with negative messages, you don't have that lovely thing to go back to and remember. So sometimes just letting them experience without interfering, and just because when they're born, you actually feel the love of God because they're pretty much as innocent as you're going to get right after birth.
Yeah.
And so when you see kids and stuff, you sort of feel that overwhelming, sense of love, and then that overwhelming sense of responsibility on top of it to not screw them up.
Yeah.
But
I was never
again,
worried about that. I knew I was doing nothing from then even. That's what I went with. It's like, thank you. Got him. Yeah.
Well, gosh, this has been a great discussion, and I don't even know where we are. I mean, we went over, I read the first paragraph, but I think that the discussion has pretty much included the whole thing. But does anyone, Johanna.
I would like to share a short piece from the text that relates to idle thoughts, and I'll share screen so you can see what I have in front of me. Here at the bottom, this paragraph concludes by saying there are no idle thoughts. All thinking produces form at some level.
Yeah, yeah.
And the thing is, I was talking about this a couple of days ago with somebody, and that person asked me, so let's just do an experiment. What are you thinking about? Just be quiet for a few seconds. What thoughts do come up for you? And then when I did that experiment, the thought that came up in my mind was of a future event, something that was going to happen in the future that I was worrying about. And I had no clue that was an idle thought. That's just regular me worrying about a future event. And that question that the person asked me was, in fact, making me realize that I was producing form by just entertaining that worry about that future event. And it wasn't really, a terribly bad thing, but still, it was not producing love. And so that's why I thought it might be helpful to just read this entire paragraph, really. So that's chapter 2, section 6, and then paragraph 9. In the very end, it says, there are no idle thoughts. All thinking produces form at some level.
And
That's
that
what-
reminds me of our lesson before. And if you would have seen my comments, which you probably have on Facebook, I made a mantra from what you said. And it's like, I have no use for idle thoughts. I have no use for idle thoughts. I have no use for idle thoughts.
Random. I use the word random. Yeah.
Random idle
Yeah.
thoughts? Idle thoughts? Or is it random thoughts? I have no use for random thoughts. Isn't idle thoughts random thoughts?
Yeah.
I
It
don't
doesn't matter. You don't have use for them.
I have no use for any thoughts. So I forgot to use that mantra over my thoughts because I know it'll work. So I'll be able to stop those and be like Elysium.
Well, I
Yeah.
think isn't all thought that is not thought with God idle?
I would say.
Told
Yeah.
that all
Yeah.
thoughts that we think with God are real thoughts, and everything else is
Yeah.
idle. That's how I thought
The
about it.
way I like to talk about it is the thoughts I think with God are inspirations, and the thoughts I think with ego are regurgitations. They just rehash.
That's good.
They just rehash.
Yeah.
And so, and keep that in my mind. It's really easy to pinpoint, but I have to be aware that pinpointing needs to happen all the time. Because if I don't do it, I'll just go back to rehashing,
Right.
regurgitation.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, this kind of fits with what was already said, I think, by you, Sharon, that that I was thinking of as I was listening to you, is that this is from chapter 5. What you made can always be changed, because when you do not think like God, you are not really thinking at all. Delusional ideas are not real thoughts, although you can believe in them. But you are wrong. The function of thought comes from God and is in God. As part of his thought, you cannot think apart from him. And I just wanted to share that because we're here together, I think, because we have fallen in love with the idea that there is another way, and the other way is through forgiveness. And forgiveness is real because, in the sense that we still think we need it, is real because the thoughts, all the messy thoughts that we are talking about, and I totally raise my hand in that I am following these thoughts, seeing these thoughts, noticing these thoughts all day, same as you, Bill. Yet every time I need to remind myself that that these thoughts are not personal, they're not mine, they're not anyone's, because it says here, and I don't want to say it says here, but it's because why forgiveness is forgiveness. It's because these thoughts that we share that are not of God are not real thoughts. And that just brings it back to why we want to come together and focus on the forgiveness. And yeah, amen to that, I guess.
Amen. Key word, come
Thank
together.
you.
I think that's only how we can do it. You can't do it alone. You can try, but your mind will always get you in the end.
That's right. That's right.
Well, you can do it alone, I think, but you got to do it with your partner, which is trust, which is Jesus, which is the mind that knows, you know.
Yeah, you can at least one other. You're absolutely right. At least one other. And if you're single like me, then you have to be part of groups more. You don't want to be in your own mind.
Well, yeah, but even if you were in a cell by yourself, you can still.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Oh, I don't believe I need another human body next to me or interacting with me in order to be home with God. I really believe that if I was in a cell by myself, I could be happy with God.
I don't believe that. That's not my journey, unfortunately. That could be yours. That probably is yours, but no, mine. I need the 8 billion
Yeah.
people.
Well, we're at the top of the hour, and I would like to end this with just a short, if you will, with me, a short, quiet space for those friends of ours, relatives, anyone we know that is experiencing challenges right now. If you would think their name and put them in a circle of love, and if we could end our session with this circle of love, with all the people that we care about and wish the best for to be with us. Amen. Thank you so much for being with me today, for being with all of us today.